2057. Earth's resources are completely depleted. A race to claim every ore-bearing rock in the solar system begins. (2079). Tension grows as opposing nations compete for ever-declining resources and expand their military capabilities in space. 2085. Eurofed Deep Space Survey ship Argo is impounded by SDR-AF coalition forces. 3 ships are destroyed in the ensuing police action. Negotiations fail and war breaks out. 2086. The war escalates and military resources on all sides are rapidly depleted. 2087. The final fleet action takes place at Nereus Harbor, orbiting Neptune. Within days, the battle is finished. Damaged and badly irradiated, the flagship Damocles is the only cruiser to survive the conflict. The war is over. Powerful multinational corporations unite to take control and restore order to the tatters of society. With little remaining military or financial resources, Earth's governments are stripped of their powers and are forced to demilitarize. The construction of capital-class armed spacecraft is outlawed. 2089. The corporations continue the exploitation of space, making vast profits to further strengthen their position. Earth's coalition government is allowed to create a multinational force to keep order in the colonies. The government police are born.
I never intended to join the G-Police. A lot of vets did after the collapse, but I'd seen enough killing. And killing's what it's all about. When they first hit the colonies, the G-Police operated like any other Earth-based force. They got slaughtered by the truckload, and it was clear that the frontiers required more forceful policing. Close air support was introduced in the shape of the AG-60 Havoc. I'd flown these babies on Mars during the war, and they were past their prime even then. Lack of funding from Earth means that these ships are still in frontline service. Second-hand machines flown by second-hand crews. Which doesn't make the job any easier. G-Police are supposed to represent government authority in the colonies, but I knew the score. Most smart cops did now. Keep the population under control and try and turn a blind eye to any shady corporation deals. G-Police are all volunteers, usually vets with time on their hands. There's a few high-minded idealists who think they can make a difference, but the majority are just running from problems back on Earth. The G-Police ask no questions. If you're willing and you're up to it, you're in. Elaine Slater was one of the idealists. She was on her 4th tour as a Havoc pilot on Callisto, and now she's dead. Another good cop among many. They don't keep count anymore, but Elaine Slater was different. She was my sister. The inquiry gave a verdict of suicide linked to stress and depression. I didn't buy that. Elaine had won commendations for closing a couple of big cases, and she'd even hinted at a new romance. Depression just didn't fit the picture. If I didn't believe the suicide verdict, that left only one option. Someone murdered her and went to the trouble of covering it up. I had to know the truth. With a couple of street contacts and most of my savings, I bought a new identity and signed up as a Havoc pilot in the colonies. My military record got me a posting to the main hotspot, Callisto, to Elaine's old unit. I knew I'd have to watch my back out there. If anyone found out I was Elaine's brother, I was as good as dead.
Welcome to Callisto, Mr. Taylor. I'm Commander Horton, and I run this operation. I don't know who you were trying to fool with that false name, Bull, Slater, but it's not gonna work on me.
I'd met some of the pilots already. They seemed pleasant enough. Horton was another story. A horror story. He talked tough and looked tougher. That hunk of tin hanging around his brain hadn't slowed him down, though. He'd spotted my phony ID and was not impressed. Arriving on the same flight as the internal affairs investigator hadn't earned me any brownie points either. It was plain that my new commander didn't trust me. Yeah, that was okay. I wasn't too sure about him either. As I listened to Horton, I noticed the medals he wore. A vet from the Naris action. No wonder he looked half dead. Well, then it clicked. He was the Horton, the last great fleet captain. What the hell was he doing in this backwater?
I don't trust you, Slater, and I'm gonna be watching you like a hawk. Your first briefing is tomorrow at 0500 hours in the main briefing room. In the meantime, I suggest you take a look at your unit's database and familiarize yourself with it. That's all for now, Slater. Dismissed.
Okay, people, listen up. We all know that gang warfare has escalated rapidly in the past few months. We've been hit pretty hard by it. A lot of the weapons being used by the gangs are restricted military issue. We need to find out where this state-of-the-art firepower is coming from and neutralize the source. Recent information points to Krakow employees being involved in this weapons smuggling. The evidence is slight, however, and there is no clear motive for the corporation as a whole. I have expressed our concerns to their president, Natalie Argenta, who was naturally denied any involvement. Argenta is coming over on the next shuttle, which arrives in 4 days. I can't give an official directive here, but off the record, keep a close eye on Krakow activities. I think they're hiding something. As you're probably aware, internal affairs are now investigating us, so no foul-ups, no heroics, and definitely no friendly fire incidents. Understood? Yeah. Keep your eyes open out there, do your job, and get back in one piece. We can't afford to keep losing pilots or gunships at this rate. Mission briefings are at 0500 hours tomorrow. Good luck, people. Dismissed.
One of the major Callisto corporations is suspected of smuggling arms into the colony. Unfortunately, we are yet to determine which corporation is to blame. We have received certain details from an informant, suggesting that the latest shipment will be arriving on the next inbound transport. The inventory lists 10 cargo containers, which are to be loaded onto tractors and delivered to the appropriate shipping addresses. Orders are to scan the incoming transports while attempting to identify the smugglers. Once the convoy leaves the spaceport, you must perform a weapons scan on all containers. If suspicious goods are present, continue to monitor the container until an arrest team arrives. In the event of a problem, do not open fire unless directly fired upon. Good luck.
Control to Alpha Wing. You have more hostiles incoming. Over. Nice job. Control to Alpha 1. Vehicles must be scanned and identified before they are lost. Over. Commence scan. Innocent. Do not destroy. Control to Alpha Wing. Don't shoot it before you've scanned it. It might be innocent. Over. Commence scan. Innocent. Do not destroy. 2 down, 2 to go. Good work. Mission complete. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Ground Team Epsilon have been eliminated. Over.
It is confirmed that the container was carrying sufficient illegal arms to supply a small army. Krakow Corporation denies involvement. However, it is clear that we should be aware of the possibility of corrupt elements operating within Callisto's infrastructure. Forensic inspection of the transport wreckage has revealed a document marked with a delivery ID. This has since been traced to a warehouse on the east side. We are sending an arrest team to raid the premises. You must provide air support. Remain close to the team at all times. Defend them against hostiles, and ensure that you do not hit any of our units.
Control to Alpha Wing. Escort Ground Team Delta. Over.
Ground Team Delta reporting. We're on our way. Over.
Control to Alpha Wing. You have 2 unidentified craft in your vicinity.
The apprehension of a named suspect, Rogan Edwards, who is now under interrogation. Last week's raid on the weapon warehouse led to the arrest of a certain Rogan Edwards. As he has made bail, you are required to track him and report his destination. You will need to remain close enough not to lose him, although you are warned that he is likely to panic if he realizes you are there. Do not fire at the suspect unless you are directly fired upon. He will depart G Police HQ in 30 minutes. Once you have reported his destination, a team will be sent to raid the premises.
Slater.
Ground Team Gamma reporting. We're on our way. Over.
Arrest team reporting. We're in position. Over.
Control to Alpha Wing. Arrest team raid complete. Return to base. Over. Good work, Slater.
The raid revealed a number of modified civilian craft. They have been fitted with hard points on which weapons can be mounted. A quantity of these craft have already been completed and shipped out. Unfortunately, all suspects were fatally wounded while resisting arrest. A report from the officer leading the raid has been requested. The president of the Krakow Corporation has been requested to attend G-Police HQ during her scheduled visit to Callisto. She is required to respond to specific allegations regarding her corporation's personnel. However, she is concerned for her safety and has requested high-level protection throughout her visit. Alpha Team, Slater and Tachikawa, will sweep the spaceport prior to the arrival of her shuttle. Suspicious vehicles must be investigated. Scan vehicles and eliminate any potential threats.
Control to Alpha Wing. Proceed to Waypoint 1. Over. Slater? Tachikawa! I'm your wingman for this mission! Let's make it a good one, huh? Destroy those fighters before you proceed. Protect the shuttle at all costs. Good shooting, Slater! There are at least 3 vehicles attacking the shuttle. Eliminate as many as you can. Shooting, Slater! Control to Alpha Wing. All targets eliminated. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Proceed to Waypoint 2. Over. Control to Alpha 1. Objectives accomplished. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Subject has landed. She will transfer to private vehicle. Over. The shuttle has landed safely. Return to base.
Once again, the container lorry's wreckage indicates the use of prototype automated equipment. The attacking craft were gang ships, likely to have been hired for the occasion. The lack of human remains is disturbing, but we have been unable to recover any further clues. Your gun cameras confirm that no one left the lorry during the firefight. All evidence thus far suggests that whoever is controlling these activities has substantial resources on which to draw. Natalie Argenta, the Krakow president, is currently sheltering in a fortified bunker at the spaceport. She is understandably shaken as a result of the ambush and is now demanding an escort from the port to the Krakow Corporation HQ. She has personally requested that Slater be included in the escort. Tachikawa will be the accompanying pilot.
Control to Alpha Wing. President has arrived safely. Good work, Slater.
President Argenta has asked that you be thanked for providing such an effective escort. As you are aware, your presence was certainly needed. This situation appears to be escalating, and we are not yet able to provide an adequate explanation. The President insists she has no idea why she has been targeted, and neither, it must be said, do we. The terrorists would not seem to gain by her assassination. Any suggestion of inappropriate behavior on the part of her company. We've got to keep a lid on this if we can. Do your best out there.
Morale was shot to hell. They were all talking about Tachikawa's death. Tachikawa used to fly his Havoc like he'd been born in it, they said, and no one could believe he was gone. The rescue squads had picked up the wreckage, but his body had just vanished. Reese, the flight software technician, was checking it out. As I listened, it slowly became clear that Daniels and Ricardo had been Elaine's closest friends. Her death had hit them hard. They gave me the story. Seemed her comms link had gone down during a routine patrol. She'd just lost it and piled into an antenna mast. Made no attempt to avoid it. I felt uneasy. This all sounded too close to the way Tachikawa had bought it for it to be just coincidence. I needed time to think. So I made my excuses and left. It had been a bad day, but at least we had saved Krakow's president. If she'd been greased, all hell could have broken loose.
The automated weapons we recovered after the attack on Argenta are a new development, possibly off-world in origin. We have nothing conclusive, but Krakow's past expertise in this field certainly implicates them. However, the attacks on the Krakow president, Argenta, leads me to believe that this may not be the whole picture. Argenta has alluded to Nanosoft involvement in the attacks, but as yet has refused to say any more. Tech Lab's findings are inconclusive. They say the prototype software controlling the weapons used in the attack on her is years ahead of anything on the market. It could be the work of a number of corporations, including Nanosoft. As a result of these attacks, Krakow have requested GP cover for their president and their industrial sites, and also want us to lean on Nanosoft. We'll go along with the first request, but Nanosoft have given us no reason to investigate them further. Stay alert out there. It's up to us to contain this situation. Any further escalation could turn Callisto into a war zone. Mission briefings are at 0430 hours tomorrow. Dismissed.
A group of Krakow B-12 mining droids have reportedly malfunctioned and are dangerously out of control. They are fitted with powerful industrial lasers, which are destroying everything within range. Krakow claim they are unable to control the robots, so it's down to us to stop them. Please be aware of the droid's laser, as it will inflict severe damage on a Havoc. Locate the droids, disable the laser, and then attempt to immobilize them. Time is of the essence, as the reported damage is rapidly increasing.
Wing, mission complete. Over.
Krakow are adamant that they are not to blame for this situation. Thankfully, fatalities were restricted, and Krakow have offered to pay for structural damage caused by the droids. They will also award damages to any families suffering losses. They are reported to be launching a full investigation into the event. A virus has escaped from Nanosoft's virtual lab and downloaded itself into a number of Krakow craft. It appears to be shutting down their essential navigation systems, resulting in craft which veer wildly out of control. You will need to disable these craft to protect their occupants. Patrols have reported the presence of gang craft in the same area. This is exacerbating the situation as they are opening fire on civilians. Order must be re-established as soon as possible.
Control to Alpha Wing, mission complete. Over.
Nanosoft are in the process of taking remedial action to rectify damage caused. The virus has been contained, and there are no further reports of navigational malfunction. The corporation appears to be taking the situation seriously, as they have launched a full investigation into the affair. The results will of course be monitored, but we are satisfied with their attempts to minimize the effects of this error. A terrorist cell has seized the Krakow assembly yard, which is now being rigged with explosives. If the cell members are not eliminated, they will destroy the entire yard. They seem to be using the numerous types of heavy plant machinery as cover. You will need to root them out by using yourself as a target. This should force them to reveal themselves. Disable all hostiles as soon as possible.
Control to Alpha Wing, proceed to Krakow Assembly Yard. You are clear to eliminate resistance on arrival. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Time is of the essence, Alpha Wing. Execute orders urgently. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Eliminate gang ground units before they destroy the yard. Control to Alpha Wing. One of the buildings has exploded. Hurry!
Incoming fire. We have 2 airborne targets incoming. Over.
Control to Alpha Wing. You have multiple unidentified craft in your vicinity. Over.
Hold it, Alpha Leader. You're supposed to be shooting the enemy.
in the light of recent events, Krakow are demanding increased protection from G Police. In fact, they are accusing us of chronic incompetence in the policing of Callisto. This is a very grave situation. Bulletins report the hijacking of a Krakow heavy land train, which is currently being driven towards the Dome exit tunnel. The train has definitely been loaded with explosives. It is suspected that the train will be detonated as it reaches the tunnel. The onboard nuclear power unit may well go critical and cause a dome fracture. This, of course, would be disastrous. You must locate the land train, remove the explosives, and destroy the tractor at the front of the train before it reaches its target. Ricardo will fly support, while Daniels provides top cover.
Control to Alpha Wing. Bomb loaded. Proceed to waypoint for safe disposal. Control to Alpha Wing. Land train approaching target. There's not much time. Control to Alpha Wing. Stop that train before it reaches the tunnel. Good job. You averted a major catastrophe.
Fortunately, the dome escaped without damage. You are to be congratulated for averting a major life loss situation. The G Police Criminal Investigation Team is currently committing all resources to the investigation of these terrorist incidents, but results so far are disappointing. We're dealing with events as they arise, but without some idea of who's to blame, our efforts will be of limited effect. The best we can do is to continue doing our best. An aircraft has been detected heading for the official residence of the Krakow president. Initial scans suggest it to be a ground attack ship of some description, and it appears to be carrying some heavy ordnance. It refuses to respond to our requests for formal identification, so we are assuming it to be hostile. Scramble immediately, intercept the craft, and destroy it.
Control to Alpha Wing. Destroy the hostile craft before it wipes out the President's residence. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Take out that gunboat. Over.
The suspect craft was a B-202 ground attack gunboat, an extremely powerful piece of hardware with the potential to destroy large buildings and similar man-made structures. According to a detailed scan of all databases, this type of hardware has never been introduced to Callisto. It scarcely needs to be mentioned that this is an extremely serious situation.
Things just got weirder. Late that night, I got a call from Reese to meet her down the lab. Intrigued, I went along. Reese was buzzing like a short circuit when I got there. She'd combed through the remains of Argenta's attacker and wanted to show me what she'd found. It was badly burnt, but I knew what it was. I had one implanted myself. It was a cortex chip, used to record sensory data on its way to the brain, and it proved the pilot must have been ex-military. This was big news, and I turned around to say so, but the barrel of a peacemaker, too, suggested that Reese had a problem to discuss. She'd secretly run checks on Tachikawa's avionics, and eventually tracked down an advanced cryptovirus. I told her what had really happened on the mission, and why I'd had to lie. Reese wasn't convinced, so I poured out everything. Elaine, my suspicions, the lot. Finally, she put the gun down. The virus in the cortex chip meant only one thing: a traitor. Could it be Horton? We had to tread carefully. Reese and I agreed to keep quiet about this information while she worked on a virus killer. It looked like I'd got my first ally.
The situation looks grave, people. That full-scale airborne attack on President Argenta has pushed Krakow over the brink. They have effectively declared war on Nanosoft. Nanosoft claim they're victims of overt corporate rivalry and request G-Police protection. They've warned us that, in addition to their new weapons, Krakow also have access to military equipment which was supposedly decommissioned after the war. It seems that Krakow and a few other corporations secretly stockpiled these weapons after the collapse. And it looks like a lot of them made it here to Callisto. We need to be ready for anything out there. In view of their cooperation, we must comply with Nanosoft's request. I want Krakow's private little war shut down before it rips Callisto apart. The rules of engagement have changed. Any Krakow vehicle may now be fired upon as soon as it is identified. We have also decided to authorize the use of military-grade weapons. Mission briefings are at 0400 hours tomorrow. Good luck. Dismissed.
Scramble immediately. We have a missile alert. Slater, this is a vital mission. A D-class cruise missile is currently traveling from Juno Dome. Its intended target appears to be Nanosoft HQ. If it connects with the HQ, the entire dome will rupture. It is imperative that the missile is taken down before it reaches its target. A radar team will attempt to locate the launch site. As soon as this is accomplished, they'll inform you. We'll then need you to destroy the site.
Seek out and destroy the cruise missile, urgently. Missile launch site has been located. Nice job.
The technician's report on the remains of the launch site suggests that it could have been constructed by Krakow. If this is the case, it means that Krakow may well have decided to ignore G-Police and take the law into their own hands. It is to be hoped that this was an isolated act of frustration rather than part of a systematic campaign. Incoming reports indicate a large number of Krakow fighters attacking civilians in the Nanosoft residential district. Why they would take such action is unknown, but they must be stopped. Unconfirmed information details 20 fatalities and 60 injuries.
Well done. All Krakow activity has been stopped. Control to Alpha Wing. Mission accomplished. Good cleanup.
Krakow have given us no alternative. We have positive IDs on all fighters at the scene, and each one was definitely registered with Krakow. We will be proceeding with action against the corporation immediately. 3 heavy siege guns are en route to the Nanosoft Research Center from the Krakow storage compound. We have asked for an explanation from Krakow, but as usual they are denying all responsibility. The guns are entering from the west tunnel and are being supported by a fighter escort. Understandably, Nanosoft have appealed for G-Police assistance. Slater will lead Ricardo on a mission to destroy the siege guns with a group of G-Police fighters providing backup. Those fighters must be kept off Slater.
Nice job. Just one more to go. Nice job. Control to Alpha Wing. Great job. The research center is safe for now. Control to Alpha Wing. Mission complete. Over.
Krakow's increasingly arrogant behavior is threatening to trigger some kind of free-for-all on Callisto. These corporate tantrums must now be brought under control. It is to Nanosoft's credit that they have not retaliated to this aggressive posturing. However, we cannot assume that they will remain so calm indefinitely. G-Police has ordered Krakow to disable all its remaining military equipment. Predictably, the corporation is refusing to comply. They claim the attacks are not of their doing. They leave us no alternative but to use force to destroy their military hardware. Slater will carry 2,000-kilogram bombs to be dropped on the compound, while Ricardo provides air support. We must aim to disable as much equipment as possible.
Attacking target. Attacking target. Attacking target. Attacking target.
Control to Alpha Wing. Good work. They won't find it easy to fight anyone now. Over.
Now that Krakow's military hardware has been removed from the equation, we should be able to continue with legal proceedings on a more formal basis. We are in the process of assembling the evidence against Krakow. Clearance to seize company records should be confirmed shortly. We have now assembled ground units ready to download all data from the Krakow Corporation headquarters. Slater and Ricardo will provide air support for the ground units in case things get out of hand. However, we don't expect resistance, as we destroyed their military hardware very effectively. Once the data drives have been retrieved, they'll be loaded onto your gunship for delivery to G Police HQ. Please be aware that corporation officials may attempt to escape. If this happens, they should be captured without inflicting harm.
Good work, Slater. Control to Alpha Leader. Mission status accomplished. Over.
It is not known why Nanosoft attacked G Police units, or why they were trying to destroy the Krakow HQ. We have several analyst teams studying the retrieved data right now. It seems likely that the information may well contain a few answers. You will be notified of further developments. For the moment, please be aware that the corporate conflict no longer appears to be over.
Now, Nanosoft had joined the fun. They'd been lying to us all the time, and it looked like Horton had bought it all. He couldn't be that dumb. All my suspicions about the virus and the Cortex chips came flooding back as I stormed into his office and accused him of selling us out. Horton was a cool one, all right. Didn't even blink an eyelid. Turned out, he'd always suspected Nanosoft but couldn't gain enough evidence. Being aware of the traitor, Horton had hidden his suspicions to keep Nanosoft off his back, while he methodically took Krakow to pieces. Hell, you had to admire the guy. He'd even tried to cover our backs on that last mission. A recon patrol under Ricardo had been secretly dispatched to warn against any Nanosoft first strike. It was just bad luck that the patrol got jumped. Ricardo had suffered a downed comlink just before his wingman got flamed. By the time he got back with the news that Nanosoft were attacking, it was too late. The traitor was still loose, but at least the data dump from Krakow's HQ promised to be interesting. With Krakow out of the way, we could now put the heat on Nanosoft. Horton planned to fill us all in at the next briefing. I went to check on Ricardo to see if he was okay.
Well done, team. Krakow are now definitely out of the picture. Despite setbacks, the last mission was a success. The data we acquired on both Krakow and Nanosoft is damning. It seems Nanosoft have developed a way of cracking military Cortex chips. As you know, these chips save out the user's brain map when they die. Nanosoft haven't yet been able to replicate this information, but they found a way to hardwire the chips into machinery. With the aid of a personality suppressant program, these stored skills and abilities are being used to drive Krakow's automated weapon systems. Which means... yeah, they've been using our own pilots against us. Why the two corporations fell out, we don't know, but it was a lucky break for us that they did. Nanosoft have kept quiet about the attack on our troops. They obviously know the extent of the information we have on them and are gonna take action. We've only got a limited amount of time. We've got to plan our offensive fast before Nanosoft can launch theirs. We've already witnessed some of Nanosoft's military capability, so we can safely assume that they have access to the same weaponry as Krakow. To make matters worse, the data dump contained references to some sort of super weapon. Unfortunately, the nature and location of this weapon were not retrieved. I couldn't alert Earth authorities until Krakow were out of the picture. Nanosoft would have definitely intercepted the transmission and jumped on us. Unfortunately, Callisto has now entered Jupiter's shadow, and that means we have to hold out for nearly 16 more days before we can even send for help. I won't lie to you, the next few weeks are gonna be tough, so keep it tight, people. Mission briefings are at 0400 hours tomorrow. Good luck out there. Dismissed.
G Police Barracks and a nearby residential block have come under attack from Nanosoft fighters. It is imperative that we protect the residential block. It is assumed that the barracks will be able to muster its own defense. Slater and Ricardo will defend the residents. We'll also dispatch a couple of fighters to the barracks.
Control to Alpha Wing. Nanosoft ground units have entered your dome. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Mission accomplished. Good cleanup. Control to all units. Watch out for future decoy tactics. Defense of GP resources is a priority. Over.
the Nanosoft attack has been repelled, but the J-Star radar team report activity in Mining Dome Pico. It is suspected that Nanosoft intend to use the mining domes to transport hardware and forces throughout the colony. 10 minutes ago, we detected Nanosoft forces in Mining Dome Durin. A patrol in the area was redirected to check on the situation. Before contact with the patrol was lost, they encountered a large Nanosoft force heading for Mining Dome Bavor. 5 minutes ago, a distress signal was received from G-Police Uplink Station Bavor. It appears that Nanosoft have this operation carefully planned. If this station is destroyed, we will lose 30% of all radar coverage for the local domes. You must defend the station until attacking forces withdraw or are destroyed completely.
Control to Alpha Wing. Clear the area of all Nanosoft units.
Damn it! How many more are there?
Control to Alpha Wing. Device disarmed. Carry station is secure. Over. Good work. Control to Alpha Wing. All main uplink stations are now secure. Return to base. Over.
If Nanosoft had succeeded in destroying just one of our uplink stations, it would have become extremely difficult to track their activities. All these sites have now had their defenses increased. We have also had to increase the number of patrols in the mining domes. We are now having to rely on our intelligence units to help us predict Nanosoft's next move. Until then, we'll just have to contain them. A routine patrol team seems to have disturbed a nest of Nanosoft fighters. They had no choice but to engage them in action. They've managed to hold out for some time, but their ammunition is now running low. You are required to fly in with supplies. You will need to help disperse the Nanosoft fighters until the patrol reaches the G-Police precinct. Pick up the ammunition from Storage Area 57 and drop the supplies to the patrol. They'll be vulnerable while rearming, so you'll need to absorb a lot of the flak when they land. Intelligence suggests there might be a Nanosoft fighter base in the vicinity. If you can find it, destroy as many resources as possible.
Control to Alpha Wing. Bomber Group Zeta dispatched. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Escort Bomber Group Zeta to target. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. All targets eliminated. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Mission accomplished. Good cleanup. Over.
Nanosoft seem to have assembled an awesome stockpile of military hardware. Be aware that you are up against an opponent with vast resources. However, we must continue to pressurize them and be prepared to respond at a moment's notice. Nanosoft have managed to seize the main power station in Oski. This station currently supplies power to the mining domes and backup power for the Nanosoft domes. Their plans are likely to be upset if we are able to retake the power station. However, they have established radar-guided anti-aircraft defenses around the station, which makes life extremely difficult for the Havocs we've sent out to clear the way. 3 craft have already been lost, and the pilots are still out there somewhere. Slater will provide cover for our ground units until they are able to make a significant impact on the anti-aircraft defenses.
Ground team Delta to Alpha Wing. They're all over us. Do you copy? Request urgent assistance. Over. Ground team Delta to Alpha Wing. The power station has been secured. Over.
Control to Alpha Wing. Mission accomplished. Good cleanup. Over.
Control of the power station has been regained. This is a significant result, as it makes Nanosoft rather more vulnerable. Intelligence reports indicate that they now plan to consolidate their resources in their commercial domes. At last, it appears that Nanosoft are reacting to our efforts rather than the other way round. It is becoming clear that Nanosoft are now concentrating their resources in their own outer domes. Intelligence predict they'll move 70% of their force through the Pico and Oski service access tunnel. If they reach the tunnel, they'll be able to pass through to the Nanosoft dome easily. However, before they reach the access tunnel, they'll have to use the crevasse bridges, which give us the opportunity to deliver a devastating strike. If we are able to destroy the bridges, we'll leave their units isolated, if not destroyed completely by the blast. At the moment, we have ground units slowing their advancing convoy until we can get into position. Of course, this means we will have to let our units cross before the bridges are destroyed. If they can't get across, they'll be stranded in the crossfire. Intelligence inform us that Nanosoft are likely to spread their hardware across the 4 bridges near the access tunnel. An immediate strike is essential if we are to destroy the maximum number of resources. Slater will lead the air division. Please remember that we cannot afford to isolate our own forces. The bridges must be destroyed after the G-Police units are safely across.
Good work. Control to Alpha Wing. Escort Bomber Group Zeta to target. Over. Nice job. Control to Alpha Wing, we have reports of nanosoft activity in Pico. Over.
Before we proceed further into the outer domes, we need to establish air superiority. Patrol the waypoints and engage any nanosoft craft you encounter. Stay alert. We cannot afford to lose any more resources.
Control to Alpha Wing, mission accomplished. Good cleanup. Over.
The venom is proving a little unpredictable, as you are no doubt aware. The bugs are being worked on, and you will be informed when it is clear for active use. However, intelligence are delighted with the information gathered thus far on the domes. Analysts are working through it, and the assault will be continued shortly. Our armored division is now preparing for its assault on the Jumo Dome. Their priority is to regain the G police base situated there. Slater and Ricardo will lead the airstrike to retake our building. Ground teams have been assigned to your command, so allocate their positions before attacking the nanosoft forces. You will need to provide cover until the ground teams have taken control of the building.
Control to Alpha Wing, mission complete. Over.
The precincts have been regained. This gives us a firm seriously damaged. This should make it much easier for us to take control of the outer domes. We are currently gathering tactical data from surveillance patrols and intelligence reports. Once we have located the main threat in these domes, the assault will be continued. Our patrols report that they have located the main military compound within Nanosoft's outer domes. As Nanosoft's radar systems are severely limited at present, we should be able to launch an attack on it without detection. Slater and Ricardo will be sent in to escort a flight of bombers, with Slater leading the group. It is essential that you keep low as you approach. Nanosoft still have some basic radar installations in their control, and once you are spotted, they'll scramble all their available craft. Attempt to destroy as many fighters on the ground as possible, then drop your ordnance on the main hangar.
Control to Alpha Wing. Destroy all Nanosoft hardware. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Great work, Alpha Wing. Second Nanosoft base destroyed.
This is a complacency warning, G-Police. Nanosoft are retreating into their inner domes now that you've wiped out their main military base. However, they still have a massive arsenal under their control, so beware.
Reese met me as I landed. Speak, the internal affairs investigator, was with her. I figured something must be wrong. Turned out Horton had been blown away. Inside, Reese showed me the security camera video. I choked as I watched the security pictures. It was Ricardo. My old wingman had planted the virus that finished Elaine, Tachikawa, and the rest. And now Horton was gone too. I wanted to grease that creep right then and there, but the recording was hours old. Ricardo had hauled his stinking carcass back to Nanosoft with Horton's Cortex chip. So much for Horton's keen military mind being Nanosoft's downfall. Now they had all his military skills to draw upon. With Horton dead, Speak was taking over. I hoped she was up to it.
I am now assuming command of this force. I know that the loss of Commander Horton has shaken us all, but if we continue with his strategy, we will prevail. We now have control of the Nanosoft Outer Dome. The next stage is to take out Nanosoft's HQ at the core of the inner domes. The entrance tunnels have been sealed, so the first phase of our attack is to regain access to these domes. Once this is achieved, we'll set up a forward base inside and continue our offensive by taking out Nanosoft's resources. The primary target will be the main power station. With their power reduced, we can launch the final offensive on the Nanosoft HQ. Mission briefings are tomorrow at 0400 hours. Good luck, everybody. Dismissed.
You will be aware that Nanosoft's outer domes are back under G-Police control. We will now have to concentrate our efforts on their inner domes. Again, they have secured the entrance point, so the tunnel's power node must be destroyed. Serious resistance is expected once we have broken through. The ground units will hold back until the doors have been reopened. They will then continue their advance. They will, of course, have to be protected until they are in position. As for the Venom craft, we are confident that the problems have now been rectified. Be assured that it will perform to your expectations under these most testing of conditions. Unfortunately, supplies continue to be restricted. They will only be available to group leaders.
Nice job. Control to Alpha Wing. Defenses are online. Nanosoft hostiles are bugging out. Mission a complete success. Return to base. Over.
Our temporary command post in the inner dome is now operational. This will allow us to coordinate our attacks far more effectively. We are certainly becoming an ever more potent force. Intelligence data received indicates that Nanosoft are anxious to force us back through the tunnels before we are able to coordinate a major offensive. In order to afford the command post maximum protection, it is essential that we send up patrols to neutralize any threats before we're seriously threatened. You can expect repeated raids. When your replacements are ready, you will be informed. Nanosoft certainly appear to be demoralized now that they have been unable to clear G-Police from their inner domes. We can be pleased that we have held on despite their best efforts. It is time for our offensive to be launched. Reports indicate that the main Nanosoft HQ is protected by a number of extremely advanced, high-capacity defense systems. Indeed, we did not expect otherwise. Unfortunately, it appears unlikely that we have sufficient firepower to attack the building directly. However, we should be able to cut their power supply, which would force them to use reserves. There is a substantial ground force protecting the dome's main generator, but we believe we can successfully attack it. Slater will lead the air attack and deploy location beacons for ground units to deal with the anti-aircraft defenses. The main power generator and surrounding buildings must be destroyed.
Control to Alpha Wing. Mission accomplished. Good cleanup. Over.
Now that Nanosoft are limited to using reserve power, we anticipate that their last days are not far away. We intend to break through their defense systems at the earliest opportunity. Be warned, we have matched their forces thus far, but their most highly trained people are certain to be in the last line of defense. There are certain items of information we require before we can launch our final attack on the Nanosoft HQ. Slater will fly a reconnaissance mission, while the remaining pilots and a ground unit execute a decoy attack. You will proceed to the Nanosoft HQ, keeping low in order to avoid radar detection. When you reach the target, scan the building's defenses and check for ground units. You will only have a limited time to complete the scan before they attack. And as your ship will be loaded with high-definition scanning equipment, your offensive armament will be low. You will receive a confirmation message when sufficient information has been gathered. At this point, you must return to base immediately.
They're scanning you. Get out of there. All clear. Continue mission. Over. They're scanning you. Get out of there. Control to Alpha Wing. Sufficient data received. Return to base. Over. That's as much as we're gonna get here. Over. All clear. Continue mission. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Good work. The data is going straight to the tech labs for analysis. Over.
All units should prepare for imminent instructions as data accumulation is now complete. Nanosoft are aware of our intentions and will be on full alert. The destruction of Nanosoft HQ is now a matter of utmost military importance. All forces will be deployed to this end. Slater will lead the airstrike and will also direct the ground units with location beacons. Once the outer defenses have been neutralized, you will receive notice to return to base to rearm with fuel air bombs. Your tactical computer will be fed details of your next target set. A forward airbase has been established at the command post. Use this for refueling and rearming as and when you need it.
Wing. Great work. Over. Control to Alpha Leader. Your mission is now complete, Alpha Leader. Can confirm total elimination of threat from Nanosoft Corporation. No further news to report. Over and out.
Congratulations to all units. Your dedication has been exemplary in the pursuit of this victory, but 48 hours R&R is the maximum that we can award at this moment. As a result of our concentration on this conflict, crime has spiraled out of control. I'm afraid there'll be plenty to do when you return to work. However, I can assure you that you will all be rewarded fully in due course. Many thanks, G-Police.
It looked like we'd beaten them, but I wasn't entirely happy. Ricardo was still out there somewhere, so I went to check on how the Venom's repairs were shaping up. I wanted to be sure of her if I ever ran into Ricardo again. Intelligence were starting to piece together the motives for our two aggressors. With most of the large corporations slowly starting to relinquish their power to the United Earth government, Nanosoft and Krakow decided it was time to step in and become the new top dogs. Their presidents formed a cozy little cabal to take over the soft corporations in the colonies. Instead of tedious and expensive buyouts, these charmers planned a more direct approach using state-of-the-art weaponry. With control of the colonies, the cabal could maintain a stranglehold on Earth's resources and rule unchallenged. But to achieve all of this, they first needed a quiet staging post with plenty of resources. Callisto. The only fly in the ointment was G-Police. I couldn't believe how close we'd been to going under. If Nanosoft and Krakow hadn't fallen out, their combined forces could have creamed us. Luckily for us, Nanosoft decided that there wasn't enough room at the top for both corporations and set Krakow up. By enlisting our aid to remove their former allies, Nanosoft would be in perfect shape to finish off our weakened forces. Yeah, we'd been lucky all right. We hadn't even had a sniff of Nanosoft's super weapon.
Extensive satellite scanning of the moon has revealed a substantial energy source being emitted from the Daedalus dome. The readings we have taken fluctuate wildly. Our scanning equipment is clearly being jammed. At the moment, we have a ground team attempting to breach the door to the dome, but they are experiencing problems. We cannot estimate how long this operation will take. Slater and Krasik will have to patrol the domes on the lookout for hostiles. Beta Group will be stationed by the entrance in case Nanosoft attempt to attack us unawares. Please be prepared for all eventualities, as we do not know what's on the other side of those doors.
My God! A capital class! But they've been outlawed since the war!
Control to Alpha Wing. Scanners confirm a capital class cruiser. Stand by, we'll work on a plan for you. Over. Alpha Leader. This will look good at your pay review. Over. Control to Alpha Wing. Speak passes her congratulations. She says she owes you one.
All units are to receive the highest commendation. This mission is now complete. G-Police control Callisto. Confirmed.
That had been close. I'd wondered if maybe they'd planned on using some sort of deep space gunboat, but resurrecting a fully fledged battle cruiser? Hell, you could grease a planet with one of those babies. After the collapse, the corporations concerned with stability and economic power banned the construction of all capital-class ships. Corporate presidents were now the ultimate authority, and boardrooms would be the battlefields of the future. Nanosoft's private little dream required a more direct approach to boardroom discussions. With a battle cruiser to do their high-level negotiating, Nanosoft could pretty much call all the shots. Callisto was the perfect place to start the construction. It was quiet, had plenty of resources, and was well removed from prying eyes. There was also a ready supply of AIs to be had from ex-military G-Police pilots. Best of all, they got Horton posted there. His Cortex chip was to form the basis of the cruiser's AI. We were lucky to stumble across the ship when we did. If it had been fully operational, there was nothing that could have stopped that monster. A special prosecutor with a Marine battalion for company was en route from Earth. Speak had transmitted her report as soon as Callisto cleared Jupiter's shadow. Krakow and Nanosoft were about to be the subjects of a very serious investigation. Still, thanks to yours truly, there wasn't much left to investigate. A few gutted domes and a whole bunch of corpses. Justice had been done. What was left of Ricardo's body was recovered from the twisted wreckage of his gunship. Horton, Elaine, Tachikawa, and the others had finally been avenged. And, like I said, I never intended to join the G-Police. But now, just like Elaine before me, I reckon I've found somewhere I can just about say I belong. I swear she'd never believe it. If she was still here, that is.